Hello and welcome to the Investing Bros. I'm fired up. I've got my I Am Satoshi shirt on today. We're going to get to some crazy stuff. Man, we've got to start off with the image that's on the thumbnail. Joe Biden's official personal account is posting some pretty pro Bitcoin imagery, and it's accompanied by the words this morning, just like we drew it up. So just like we drew it up is the words that the leader of the free world is choosing to tweet out here in kind of a coded, strange kind of imagery here. I'm gonna try to break it all down for you all, give you kind of my 2 cents on what this could mean and what it means for Bitcoin. Obviously, it means Bitcoin's going to $100,000 per coin, and we're all very, very excited about it. We will look at the charts here in just a second, but before we do, there's a whole lot of speculation around this image. Let me know, what do you think Joe Biden was thinking when he asked his interns to go ahead and Photoshop an image of him with laser eyes and post it on his actual official personal Joe Biden account? Let me know in the comments. I want to see what you all have to say about this. There's obviously quite a bit of speculation, and I'm going to give my 2 cents on it in this episode. But this is a serious YouTube channel here. We cover crypto, we cover price changes, we cover the news that affects your portfolio. So we'll get to the fun here in just a second. But before we do, we've got to celebrate something that's happening right here, guys. We got to look at the weekly close candle for Bitcoin. Look at this baby. This thing, let me turn off all my indicators here and just show you. Right down the middle, this baby right here is absolutely flying, and it's Bitcoin. It's the king of crypto. As you can see, highest candle body close for the weekly here in a very long time. This one goes all the way back. We haven't seen a candle body close this high since April of 2022. Let that sink in. Now, some folks are still sitting here saying I should fade this. You know, they're still saying that this is going to come back to 30,000. This is going to come back to 32,000. Let me know in the chat. What do you guys think? I don't know at this point. I feel like we may be in new territory. You know, here on the Investing Bros and the 9 o'clock show, we were asking, was this a dead cat bounce? Right? Because the consensus in the market was that this was a dead cat bounce here. I'm on the weekly chart, so it's, you know, you kind of have to bear with me. But, I mean, you can see price went down. It wicked down. Didn't stay there very long. Folks were thinking this was a dead cat bounce, and rightly so. It had a lot of the trappings of one, right, when it came back up. But it turns out that this, you know, is looking more and more like it's not a dead cat bounce. And yes, we did not get up above the top line of the Bollinger Band. That would have put us at 49.8 for us to close. But ultimately, not only did we get a weekly close here, the next candle, this week's candle that we're currently in, is also not even going past the 1/4 mark of this previous candle. So from candlestick analysis alone, things are looking very bullish for Bitcoin. My guess is that we go down in time frames. We're going to start seeing indications that Bitcoin is starting to cool off from this run that we had last week. This run, of course, in my opinion, was really all kicked off, this specific run, by the fact that grayscale selling has essentially ended. It has essentially come to a close, right? And now the ETF's narrative, which has been dominant since Q4 of 2023 and now into 24, that ETF narrative is now overall bullish, right? So remember, there was the sell the news, sell the spot Bitcoin ETF approval news that ended up being fairly accurate. I would even recharacterize it as less so much sell the news, more so, hey, that news was baked in. The prices were baked in by the time the actual approval came in on January 10th. And from there, the market tested lower, right? It immediately tested much, much higher, going up to 49.1, which we have not tested yet, by the way, in this bull run that we've been in, this test higher. But the market was like, all right, we tested higher real quick. Now let's test lower. Let's see how low Bitcoin will go before buyers just say, we are going to buy it at this level and you're not going to get past. And that level ended up being 38,005, right? But really, functionally, 39,005 was also pretty heavily bought. We only really got a wick below that down on the daily chart. Now, throwing up a couple of indicators before I throw any more on that chart, let's take a look here at the oscillator. Oscillator showing that bullish momentum is still very strong all throughout this run. Money flow, though, as you'll see here, has started to take on a new angle from this, like I would almost say parabolic, right? It's kind of cut that off, and now it's still bullish, it's still growing the money flow, right? And then similarly up here, you saw one correction and then two corrections. By correction, I just mean kind of reorientation of the angle that it's moving at, right? And you also got this reversal delta up here. Now that reversal delta on the Lux oscillator matrix here, that is, calling essentially what is the slowdown of momentum. And it is a slowdown of momentum because this here, that is very different momentum, a 9% move in 3 candlesticks in 3 days from this momentum. Here's another three candlesticks, 3%, right? So that is an obvious shift in momentum, kind of breaking it down there for folks who are a little bit newer to what momentum even is. Taking a look at the MACD, this is still pretty bullish in my opinion. The MACD lines are still pointing up and to the right, even more so than the angle that the MACD lines were pointing at back here at the beginning, right? But your green histograms are starting to plateau, right? So we would need to see a pretty heavy rotation into Bitcoin very soon in order for this histogram today to go ahead and exceed the previous one. And I just don't know that that's going to happen, right? But that's okay. That does not mean that Bitcoin, that doesn't mean you have to sell here. That doesn't mean, right, that anything bad is happening, right? When maybe you've invested in Bitcoin or crypto for the first time this last week, right? This is all very normal price action. The fact that we're getting a red candle today is very healthy, right? We've just ran a sprint. We need to kind of take a step back, cool down, grab some water, rehydrate, kind of consider where we're going from here before we just take off and sprint in one direction or another again. So sideways is really, really good. I had one more thing that I wanted to show you all, which was the last time that the MACD levels were this elevated, okay? So the MACD levels right now, call it functionally 700, okay, of these green histograms. So the last, and the MACD lines are pointing up and to the right quite precipitously, right? So the last time we saw this was during this run. So those green histograms got real elevated, okay? And then when we started testing this 35.5 level, which is a very big level, still is a big level for support now. But back here, it was resistance, okay? So ultimately, what does this mean? What did Bitcoin do after this? It had a slow melt up from there, which basically was sideways and then a melt up. So it was a slow, methodical push through 35.5, right after a gigantic push through all of these lines of resistance that were in here, just sliced right on through them within the matter of about a week and a half. And that is pretty similar to what we're seeing now, right? We had a huge slice through, and now what we're doing, we're coming up against another big line of support, which is this 50,000 that we have not been able to even approach, much less break through, obviously. So that is kind of what I'm predicting, is that there's going to be just kind of a slow and methodical breakthrough, getting up to 50,000 and coming back down, testing lower, maybe even putting a lower low during that to kind of psych out the bulls, have some selling, right? But ultimately probably push through that, come back, confirm, and then move higher. But I think that this breakout, so the breakout back here, it was still a move to the upside, right? But it wasn't like explosive until we got up to the next level of resistance, which was 38. Which was just 38 clean, it looks like, according to this one. And then it just blasts through. And then, but you also have to remember that this was all ETF hype. So ETF hype was coming in here at the end of Q4, right? But ultimately, I'm feeling pretty confident in this. Now, let me give you a couple of so that's my base case. That's kind of my plan A. Plan B would be, something happens, right? CZ says something, China says they're not going to pass spot Bitcoin ETFs in Hong Kong, right? Something very bearish happens, right? And then what happens? Well, then price goes back down and searches for some support, probably finding it back down where, there was a consensus of price here at 42,005, right? But I think at this point, Bitcoin will come back down and test in this pursuit ultimately to break through 50,000, but I think that the support that it's going to find is going to ultimately be higher, right? It might be here, and it might be here at 46,000, and then at this support here at 44.9. Right. I think that the days of seeing a $42,000, $43,000 Bitcoin really sub 44.5 are probably behind us without an event. Right. So an event like what I just said, it's a pretty decent example, to be honest with you, is if Hong Kong says, hey, we're getting ahead of this thing, we're not letting these applicants who've submitted for a spot Bitcoin ETF, we're not going to be approving them. Sorry, that's not going to happen, right? That would probably, because that seals the deal, right? For now, at least, for this kind of phase of China dancing with the whole Bitcoin deal, right? It would probably go ahead and spook the markets, and we would come down and test. I would imagine it doesn't get very low though, because it's not. I mean, at the end of the day, there's a lot of money in China, and there's a lot of money looking to leave the Chinese real estate and stock markets. But ultimately, I don't know that Bitcoin is what it's searching for. We've seen a big rotation out of China into India and into gold, right? And mostly into the dollar as well, right? So Bitcoin has not really been the heavy rotation coin, but it has gotten some rotation from China. So ultimately, but that's kind of leading off an example. So I gave you guys a couple of scenarios there of what could happen with Bitcoin. Let's jump over to let's do a Joe Biden jump here to the crypto bubbles. As you can see here, there's not a whole lot happening. We have a couple of coins that are popping off in the top 100. Immutable X doing well, Sui doing well, Mina doing well, Beam also doing pretty well, Manta correcting, and then DYM. You can't see it, it's behind me, but DYM is down 5% this morning, so getting a little bit of a pullback there too. So is Atom down 5%. So it's pretty much a mixed bag this morning, right? Markets are not decidedly red or green. However, they do seem to be kind of leaning red, which makes sense, right? Because Bitcoin, the momentum is now kind of fading. Now, what happens when Bitcoin starts to move sideways? Right? Does anybody remember? When Bitcoin starts to move sideways, as it did in here, right? It didn't have a huge blowout. Certain altcoins start to take off, right? We saw Chainlink. Chainlink's already had its takeoff moment. If we go check out Chainlink's done really, really well, and it is absolutely destroyed, right? Even before Bitcoin broke out. So I'm calling Chainlink kind of the canary in the coal mine, right? But ultimately, as Bitcoin goes sideways, Ethereum and the rest of the altcoins go ahead and find their next levels to the upside because money rotates. It takes profit in Bitcoin and it rotates into the altcoins where there's still potential for a move higher, right? So we'll see. That is all still going to be happening. But today we're talking about the prophecy of Bitcoin here, and I'm gonna be breaking it down for you. We've got Army Piper in the chat saying good morning, IBZ. That is the Investing Bros. C90 FTW said lurking this morning. Good morning, all. Dusty Hunt saying breaks 50K today. I don't know about that. We'll see. I mean, what I'm painting is like kind of the most probable scenario based on the big pump we just had. I think this week could be very bullish. But I could see a pump to 50 today, right? I don't think that that's the base case. I don't think that's the most likely case. I think the most likely case, Bitcoin cools off, moves sideways and slightly up until it gets up there and tests 50. Then it corrects lower. Then it comes back and tests 50 again and maybe breaks through that time, right? But there's going to be several tests, right, before it breaks a huge psychological level like 50,000. Piper Academy saying BROZ, GM, Crux of Crypto throwing in that rocket because crypto is ready to head to the moon now that Joe Biden's on board. Am I right? Joe Nickel said, he's got a juicy take here. He said, I think Biden has zero idea what those laser eyes mean, and it has more to do with conspiracy speculation about Super Bowl being rigged and Taylor Swift. Well, Joe Nickel, you're throwing a huge wet blanket over the whole situation here because that is probably what ends up happening here. Let's go ahead and jump on into what other folks were thinking in the crypto universe. Cardano's founder Charles Hoskinson and Custodia Bank CEO Caitlin Long criticized Joe Biden mockingly, questioning whether the accounts were hacked. So some folks are saying, hey, did Joe Biden go ahead and get Gary Gensler here? And was his account just hacked? I don't think that that's the case. Bitcoin maximalist Samson Mao said they should remove them, making the laser eyes so outdated. I don't know about that. That's a weird take. He also pointed to the Biden administration saying that they stopped Bitcoin from getting to $100,000. So, yeah, there's that too. Fox journalist Eleanor Tourette, we know, like, and love her. She's great. She said, "What's happening? Is he trying to appeal to crypto voters now? This incident clearly indicates to crypto community that it might be related to the current availability of the spot Bitcoin ETF in the U.S. Democrat Joe Biden is currently leading with 91 delegates in the 2024 U.S. primaries." Okay. I didn't even know someone was keeping track of that. I thought it was kind of a given at this point. Meanwhile, Donald Trump is leading in the Republican Party. And that part I don't care about at all. But that's what crypto is. That's what crypto is saying about this image here posted by the official Joe Biden account. Let me know, do you guys think it was hacked? I don't think this was hacked. I think ultimately the first comment here gets it right. Again, I think these comments are sorted based on the person looking at it. So I'm using my account. I believe I follow Shibtoshi. Yeah. So Shibtoshi Nakamoto said, "Okay, intern, you are promoted." That's great. I think ultimately that's what this is here, is that somebody at the Biden administration's PR team or whatever it is, social media management team, thought that this would be funny, is trying to continue with this narrative of Dark Brandon. There was the whole Dark Brandon situation, and now they're continuing that to try to give a little bit of brevity, a little bit of levity, a little bit of fun to the Biden administration. I don't know. I think that's more than likely the most likely case. I think Joe probably had very little to do with it, other than an intern saying, "Hey, should we post this?" and him being like, "Ha ha ha, yeah, that's funny, post it." So that kind of makes the prophecy fizzle out there, doesn't it? Well, here's some information that may make you think differently, right? Check this out. Jack Dorsey showed up to the Super Bowl rocking a Satoshi t-shirt. So those of you outside of the United States or people who don't care about sports, yesterday was a big moment where all of the king's horses and all the king's men gathered around the stadium, the castle, the palace, the Superdome, and they worshipped the sport of competition. Now, it's a principle of competition that I also don't worship, but I do hold very highly, right? And it's nice to see some athletes get out there and have some fun. But one of the aristocrats of American culture, continuing with the feudal system motif here, Jay-Z here, adorned in the threads of the National Football League, the gladiator organization itself, was joined by none other than Jack Dorsey here, founder of Twitter, and very, very big Bitcoin advocate. And he's got the Satoshi shirt on, which is pretty cool, and it's an adaptation of the Nirvana t-shirt originally. And so that's a lot of fun. And that seems to be a big moment here for crypto as well. So was there some communications behind the scenes between Jack Dorsey and other Bitcoin bulls, other Bitcoin maxis, to go ahead and have this post tweeted out? It could be that there was coordination with the shadowy halls of the White House, with Jack Dorsey and others, to go ahead and break through and announce that Bitcoin is in. Bitcoin has gone through the gates and is now being swallowed up by not only the sports establishment, right, the bread and circus establishment, it has also been completely and fully endorsed by the leader himself, the leader of the free world. Well, this is, of course, is the prophecy here, which is that first they ignore you, right? First they just say Bitcoin's dumb. I had this point in my life where I was like, Bitcoin, that seems, what is it backed by? It's the classic boomer kind of take. And a lot of people thought that way. A lot of people still feel that way. They just ignore Bitcoin. That's okay. Bitcoin's not ignoring them. But then they laugh at you. And this is the Bitcoin prophecy here, guys. Then they laugh at you, right? They say, Bitcoin, it's dumb, right? It's never going to go global. It's never going to get adoption. There'll never be payment providers that make Bitcoin usable at the cashier and at the pump. Well, of course, we've seen that to the contrary. The last bull market, a lot of people are forgetting about this. This is something not to sleep on. A lot of people are forgetting about this. that a lot of the FIS and a lot of other payment processors, they have actually integrated Bitcoin. They've made their payment processors Bitcoin compatible. It's just the retailers, right? That the publics, right? The Krogers, the Exxon Mobils that have not yet given the thumbs up. But there is actually a gas station here in Florida that does accept Bitcoin. So all it's going to take is an economic incentive, maybe another flash of inflation, for Bitcoin to be widely proliferated and adopted and used. But then they fight you, right? And certainly we have seen, and maybe entering the ending phases of the then they fight you phase, because absolutely we have seen the then you win. Because as of today, guys, the king has spoken, right? The leader of the free world has announced the victory of Bitcoin, and surely it is going to $100,000 per coin. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat. Do you agree with this prophecy? Is it come true here, or is Joe Biden gesturing to something else? Is he gesturing to the outcome of the Super Bowl, of that gladiator competition, of which is so highly praised, so lavishly adorned with the biggest celebrities, the prized jewels of a society, the human persons that soak up adoration like a sponge. I think ultimately here, giving my own take on this, right? Because obviously we've been kind of gemming it up here a little bit here on the Investing Bros, covering this story. It's a lot of fun. But ultimately, I do think that he was probably gesturing more to the outcome of the Super Bowl, kind of saying, hey, and I honestly couldn't tell you who won. I think it was the 49ers or the Chiefs. It was one of those. Let me see. It says it right here. Let the party begin. And it is the Chiefs. Okay, so the Chiefs won. So it's more than likely. So it was the timing that kind of gives it away here, guys. So he tweeted this out when that team won, when the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, or like just before it, right? And he says, just like we drew it up, kind of insinuating that he's been kind of in with the groups who are writing the scripts for the NFL, which is kind of a different conspiracy. Again, this is a useful and I do think that that's probably what's ended up happening here. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin. He's just completely, Joe Biden and the intern team has completely co-opted the Bitcoin maxi imagery, the motif here, and I don't know why, but maybe it's a dog whistle to the Bitcoin crew trying to get votes. But I think Biden knows that there's probably not too many votes to be had in the crypto community for his side of the free world. But ultimately here, I do think it has a lot more to do with the Super Bowl, and I don't know that you care about the Super Bowl, so we're going to move on. Moving on here, we got some other crypto news that's pretty important here. The EDX chief says opportunity outside the U.S. is much larger as crypto exchange expands to Singapore. Now, this is really important because this is the exchange that is backed by Fidelity Digital Assets, Citadel Securities, Charles Schwab, and also plans on pushing the crypto derivatives market, right? So this is actually a pretty big deal. And let's read into it. I've got some more references here. If we move outside of the U.S., the listed tokens that we can trade is much larger. That says it all. Because the greater regulatory clarity outside the U.S., he added, we do think that the size of the opportunity is much larger outside of the U.S. than it is inside the U.S. Yes, and I agree with that for many reasons. But here, on the EDX website, they actually listed the 4 coins. There were only 4 coins that were going to be tradable on EDX. And now you can't find what coins are going to be tradable on EDX because I'm pretty sure their biz dev team was like, hey, we can get a way more coins listed if we go outside the US, right? So they're looking to go, headquarter in Singapore, or not headquarter in Singapore, but expand to Singapore, right? And I think ultimately that's going to be pretty bullish for them because when folks sign up with a crypto exchange, they're not expecting to only have 4 coins that are tradable. I believe it was Bitcoin, Ethereum, Bitcoin Cash, and Litecoin that were going to be tradable. So clearly, some folks from early Bitcoin, early crypto, were the ones kind of picking the coins, so to speak. All of those coins are seen as kind of regulatory darlings, meaning they're not going to be controversial from a regulatory standpoint. But only having 4 is just not good. Why would I switch to EDX, right? Then the only benefit is because it has that institutional bank backing, which isn't nothing. It's not nothing. All right, moving along here, we have a couple more headlines. Solana's second phone crosses the 100,000 pre-sales mark, securing $45 million for development. That is a pretty big deal. That is a lot of money. Ripple-owned crypto custody firm Medico's CEO and head of product depart. So that is bad, not good for Ripple there. They acquired this company, Medico, and they had a pretty big contract with HSBC, the bank. And it looks like now, some of the key members of Medico are jumping ship. They're saying, hey, we don't like what we're seeing here. We're getting out. Or they just have a better opportunity. All right. Well, I've got this headline here, Grayscale 2024 Bitcoin halving different as ETFs ordinals reshape the market structure. I'm going to be breaking down this report a lot more with Kelly Kellum today at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You're going to be able to tune in and watch Kelly Kellum and I kind of break down that report and talk about a lot more. We're going to definitely talk about the charts. We're going to probably talk about this man right here, Dark Brandon, right? And what this could mean for you, what it could mean for our crypto bags. It's a lot of fun to speculate, guys. It's a lot of fun, especially with Bitcoin. It really elevated prices today. This is a good day. It's a day to scream and shout and let it all out. To scream and shout and let it out, really, in the words of someone who sang that. But let's take a look here. We've got a lot of folks in the chat chiming in here. Blackie Chan said, Anon, yes. Oh, he's responding to somebody. But if there was no leaning, you wouldn't be saying anything. Politics affect everything in life, yes, not just economics, but to ignore its role in economics is just ignorant. Yeah, politics definitely has a role in economics, 100%. Let's see. Elon Musk commented on the pic of Joe Biden, LOL. Oh, did he? I didn't see that. I did not see that one. That's interesting. Wonder what he said. Anon Team said, go team go equals politics. Very little logic or facts. Okay. I mean, that doesn't seem too far off. The Dusty Hunt said, would you vote Biden if he supported Bitcoin? Would I vote Biden if he supported Bitcoin? That is the question right there. I think we're going to answer that one at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So you got to come back and watch the bros here on YouTube. Make sure that you're locked in. Make sure you're subscribed. And that if you've liked this video, make sure you smash the like to go ahead and signal that to us. Nancy Croy saying good morning. And Gia S. saying good morning to Nancy Croy. So everybody hoping that everyone else has a good morning. I know I do. All right, let's see what else we got. C90 FTW said, not a hack. I think they are talking about something entirely different than crypto, and they don't understand our definition. Yeah, so there's a little bit of a deep theory I was thinking about this morning, right? Which is, what if this whole Dark Brandon kind of motif, this theme, right, that they tweet out through his Twitter, is really just a way to co-opt that imagery from the Bitcoin maxis and kind of broaden out that imagery to just say it's conspiracies in general, which this conspiracy, it seems, would be that, the president of the United States has something to do with throwing the 2024 Super Bowl, right? That would be, it's fun. There's no real victim, right? Because probably by then the betting odds were pretty widespread, right? I think he gets away with this on a lot of levels. But ultimately, there is still the possibility that old Joe is trying to co-opt the Bitcoin maxi imagery. But I think what he doesn't realize is how the internet works, and that's just not the way that this is going to go, my man. You've got to work a lot harder if you want that to happen. So, I mean, maybe for the folks outside of crypto, right, who've never seen that imagery used before, the laser eyes, maybe he has a chance of trying to broaden it out to just mean conspiracies in general. But I don't know. In any case, that would be bullish for Bitcoin because the true crypto bros, we know what the laser eyes mean. And if everybody started using it, that would be pretty bullish for crypto. Evan Birmingham said, Shroomy, enough with the Home Alone faces. You look like you're suffering. Yeah, so So we're very intimately familiar with how the YouTube algorithm works, and we will continue our policy on that until we see softening in the labor market or until inflation starts to peak back up. We just need to see more data to the contrary of the effectiveness of the YouTube algorithm before we're going to make any adjustments with the way that we arrange and affix our faces to the thumbnail. Appreciate your input, though, Evan. Bros, 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have Kelly Kellum on. You know him, you like him, you love him. He's a good-looking guy. If for nothing else, just tune in. You get to see him. He's the director over there at BitLab Academy at Discover Crypto. He's a Columbia alumni. He's a veteran. He was in the Air Force. He's a music man. You never want to miss a music man. And he's got a lot of stuff going on as well. In addition to that, we're going to talk about it, and we're going to more than likely really jump down into the details of this story here of kind of Grayscale, who, as we've seen, is a lot more prominent than folks are thinking. Man, 20 billion Bitcoin. So it's a big deal, and it's not going anywhere. Grayscale, we want to make sure we get this report right. We want to make sure we understand it. 3 p.m., we're going to be covering it. Make sure you stay hydrated. And if you're trading, keep your stop losses tight. We'll see you at 3.
Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros. Army pipe, lethal on trade. Entries and exits, worthy of praise. Tim, the professor of the TA. Shout it out loud on the PA. T-Shrooms News got the word. Doing better than what he deserves. Beamer, leave no evidence. Soon fly coop with his dividend. Trying to make paper, turn that better to cake. Money like Lego, connect the dots that bank. We are investing bros. We are investing bros.
Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros. Investing bros.